You all set? Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Jim Boyle. I'm the Managing Director of the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute here at the university. This is our 8th summer of running the Summer Fellowship, and we're pleased to have Ilana Odess here to kick off our speaker series. Before we get started, though, for the benefit of those of you who might not know much about YEI, and for those online who are watching, take a few minutes to describe who we are and what we do. At the university, we're very interested in helping to spur innovation and entrepreneurship and help both students and faculty get their ventures off the ground. And when we started in 2006, we were ourselves a very small startup, just built on the idea that if we can help put students and alumni together in interesting combinations, we can help ventures get started, and mostly in the infotech space, and see what happens. Well, in the last 8 years, we've spawned a series of new venture initiatives and programs at the university to help more and more people express their creativity. And this summer, we actually have not one, not two, but 3 different programs that we're operating. There's the Summer Fellowship, which consists of what we think and our operating board thinks are the most mature ideas that are ready for significant grant capital and a serious look on the part of downstream investors. And those are the Summer Fellows, a number of whom are here today. There is a new program called the Venture Creation Program, which we operate during the academic year. And during the summer, we ask a small number of teams that we think are especially promising to spend the summers with us. And they, too, are working on product market fit for their ventures with the hopes that they'll graduate to the YEI Innovation Fund, as well as to meeting with outside investors. And last but not least, we have the second year of a pilot program called the Tech Boot Camp, which seats 30 of the best and brightest of Yale students to help learn the web skills they need for building their own innovative ventures, as well as being technologists for other people's ventures as well. So things are looking up at Yale. We're very happy to have such an extraordinary increase in the number of people who are being part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I think to really bring this all to a head, I think having people like Ilana here from Woven Therapeutics to talk about her venture experience is really, I think, very inspiring. So with that, I'll give you a few brief comments about her background. Ilana, who I had the pleasure of meeting about a year ago, has spent more than 20 years in the healthcare industry. She has led leadership positions as chairwoman, founder, and investment manager. During her long career, Ms. Odess has received a Frost Sullivan Award for Innovation, and most recently, the 2014 Entrepreneurial Innovation and Leadership Award for the state of Connecticut. She's created 3 businesses, some of which have been acquired by multi-billion-dollar companies, including Johnson & Johnson. In her former roles, she was a general manager at Appreciate Medical and president of the Advanced Stent Technologies Incorporated. Ilana led the MedTech investments and management buyout for an Italian family office. She is an expert in leading companies from concept to clinical application, and has successfully negotiated and executed over 30 worldwide strategic partnership agreements and raised more than $110 million from private investors. She's certainly been in this space for a while. Ms. Odess is a graduate with a BS in biochemistry and an MBA from Bar Ilan University. And with that, I'll turn the podium over to Ilana for her remarks.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jim, for such a kind introduction. And you actually spoke already about my first slide, so you saved me here 1 slide. What I'll just add is I was born in the States, raised in Israel. Israel is very much known as a startup nation for very good reasons. If any of you want to understand why it's considered, perhaps you'll acquire the book Startup Nation. But I really think that that's the foundation of how to start companies. I will add to Jim's introduction that I started Johnson & Johnson as a direct operation in Israel, moved to Belgium and then to the US. In 7 years in J&J, I basically was in 3 different continents. It gave me really the foundation to understand how multi-international companies think and operate. And then obviously I wanted to do the startups, went to California, did the first company that was sold to Boston Scientific for $400 million. Not everything was successful in my endeavor. There has been also failures, companies that didn't rise to the occasion. And I think it's important to share these failures and see what you can learn as a lessons learned. I'll speak about that later on when I speak about grit and the terminology. If you survive failures, you'll probably be better in your next venture. So not everything is always going to be a successful endeavor. We hope that the majority, the long terms, are. So I think those are the main points that I want to bring in my background. I've been on the side of investment, so a family office based in Turin, Italy, and I've been on the side of operating companies, which really merges both areas into the knowledge that a CEO needs. Many CEOs are or operators or financiers. Bringing both of them definitely helps. So in today's talk, I really wanted to focus on 5 main success factors that you need in order to create a viable and successful startup. Probably there are more key elements, but these are the 5 building blocks that I think are important to take home as key messages. I will try to be very tangible, bring examples, and I want you to leave the room and feel like you got in the next 30 to 40 minutes things that could really help you in your current startups. Because I understand the majority have here startups. If you could just raise your hands, who is today involved in leading or operating a startup, so I understand the audience better. So I see the majority of the individuals here are involved, so the talk is really addressed to you. I don't know who's logged in online there, but again, this is to how to create a startup. So the 5 elements, fill in the need. So is it someone that doesn't know the Maslow hierarchy? I bet that we all learned it at some stage in our life, so I won't go into it to depth. But the main question you should ask yourself is, where do we actually, in your business, where do you appeal? So for instance, in the lower level, right here, let's take an example, power bars. Okay, today that's a substance not only for athletes, but also for a breakfast meal. When you're rushing out of the house and you don't have time for elaborate breakfast, a power bar is right there. Safety. Woven orthopedic technology addresses safety. Other areas, insurance companies or health providers. Let's take social. I bet you all have, Facebook accounts as well as LinkedIn accounts. When they came up with this idea, they were appealing in the Maslow hierarchy to the social element. Esteem, take the Grammy Awards. Let's take the Oscar Awards, even the awards that I recently got in the state of Connecticut. Definitely, standing on a podium, getting a prize, getting an award is appealing to the esteem. So a lot of the awards that happen here in Yale apply to the esteem, and I bet the people that want to achieve that are working extra hours and putting extra time in order to get those awards. And last, the self, the growth. So that's usually a personal trainer, and that's obviously other examples there, but you really reach the top of the pyramid. So when you have, each one here has a business, for instance, 109 Design is in the healthcare space. Anyone here from 109 Design? Okay, right in the center. What do you think you're appealing to? Safety. Safety. Okay, so that's a question you should ask, because this is a key building block in the next step. So once you define who you're appealing to, you want to fulfill an unmet need. Now, I would categorize here technologies in 3 sectors. 1 is a Me Too. 2 is an innovative. And 3 is transformative. Now, nothing here is bad or wrong or right, but this, you need to know where you fit in. I truly believe in the transformative technology, and as an example, I put here PillCom. PillCom is an Israeli technology called Given Imaging that was actually acquired by Covidian. last year. And what it does, it has a small little camera. You swallow a pill, and you actually could, in real time, visualize your intestines. Very smart idea. Was there anyone else that did this before? No. The imaging was remote. So there's one company like that. If you look at them, the characteristics, the barrier to entry is very high. It's significant. No one else could enter that because they own the IP. They're pioneers. And basically, they're a building technology, a platform technology for other indications in the health environment and outside of the healthcare. So transformative technology definitely has an advantage. One of your technologies could be a Me Too or innovative, and you could still succeed. But then you will have to position yourself against 500 competitors in the case of a Me Too, and you will need to differentiate yourself in a different way. So when you are really a transformative technology, I would like to demonstrate to you what happens to the first movers. So I took, again, an example from the spine market, and I do apologize that most of my examples will be today from the medtech and specifically in the healthcare space. But that's a space that I'm familiar with. So in the spine market, the first three players owned 80% of spine procedures, which resulted in 30,000 procedures. 15 years later, there are 75 players in that same market. But these three players that originally started the market still own 25%, which results in 350,000 procedures. So an enormous market to the ones that are the first movers and the owners of the market. So here are some examples in the transform technology, in the transformation technology. And again, I brought examples here from Israel. We spoke about given imaging, IP technology, the method of, again, using the voice over a switch internet. Argo, again, from medical device, really giving the ability for challenged people to restrain their mobility. And a flash memory. Today, instead of bringing my laptop, I came here with the next 40 slides on a flash memory. But not only is it used in that way, it's basically used today in big computers. Flash memory, a small little technology innovated in Israel, is used in every computer today. So a platform technology with many different indications. So after we spoke about creating a need, let's speak about a very important aspect, which is develop a plan. And this is going to be probably my longest section. So when you develop a plan, there are two components you need to think. One, is on this side, which is actually the key, the eyes of the investor. The other side is the operator, the CEO, the manager. On the money side, the questions that one would ask himself, do I believe in this technology? The second important question is, can these managers bring this company to fruition, to execution? Do they know, do they have the credibility, the experience, the knowledge, the know-how to take an idea and bring it to a viable company? What investors look is how to minimize the risk on the opportunity. They want the opportunity to result, obviously, in a return. And they want to be convinced that this return will satisfy their needs as investors. On the management side, many of you in the room, you need to ask yourself, how much time and effort will this take? I could tell you that it's beyond hours and days and months. You need to set your long-term goals and know that this is basically a marriage without a divorce. And this is a real, I would say, engagement, right? So you need to ask yourself, do I believe in what I'm doing? Is this really a technology that has a need? Do I fit in this marketplace? Am I bringing something innovative or transformative? So like everything in life, you need to build a roadmap. In every presentation, as you probably learned, you always say what you're going to tell the audience, you tell the audience, and then you summarize and you tell the audience what you told them. So it's 3 times. Same way in a navigation system or when you're driving. You want to get that verification and validation that you're on the right way. When I come from New York to Hartford, I want to make sure that I'm going the right direction and my distance is getting shorter and I'm getting to my right destination. And that's very much what you need to do in your current business. So develop a business plan, okay? Develop a formula. The first thing I would say to everyone in this room is have a pitch about your company that's an elevator pitch. 3, 4 sentences that explain to the person that doesn't necessarily live your terminology what you do. It needs to be very coherent, very simple, and have one key message, and all that in 2 seconds. That's the first thing. The other thing is define the problem. What is the unmet need? What are you trying to solve? You need to quantify the size of the problem. And we'll get into more examples later on. I brought a specifically example from my current startup called Woven Orthopedic Technology. Then you need to state your value proposition. Explain how you address that unmet need that you defined in the second section. Okay, then show why you're different than the competition. So you built a key business plan. And you also explain the industry factors. Every industry has elements that are very important in order to succeed. Introduce a team. The team could be advisors, board members, consultants, an ecosystem of companies that you rely on and work with. The last element here, 6, address the investors. The investors want to know where they're putting the money, why they're putting, where the proceeds will be used, what duration will it take you to use that money, and what will they get as a return and a main milestone. So here's a live example. I started this company in March of last year. A live example. Okay, I needed to define the opportunity. So one word about Woven, and I hope I don't bore anyone here. It is in the orthopedic industry. Today, the most prevalent implant in orthopedic, can anyone guess here what it is? No? Yes? Teeth? No. The most prevalent implant, screws. Very good. Just had to read that. Excellent. So now I'm convinced that one person reads the slides here. There are 40 million screws used annually. 40 million screws used annually. What is the biggest problem? Because I said you need to address a specific problem. That the population is aging and the quality of the bone is osteoporotic, meaning it's not a good density of the bone. So how will the screw hold in it? It won't. And that's what Woven is coming to address. So in very simple words, I defined the magnitude of the problem, the market size, and what unmet need I'm coming to address. So how did we do it? We went and saw all the areas where screws are used. They're used in long bone, spine, small bone, and in the face area. I went and I looked on reimbursement codes, okay, where the healthcare providers return the money to the hospital, and I looked how many procedures use codes. And I found that 279 procedures use codes. I built a model bottom up. And then I wanted to answer all the other questions. What are the names of the procedures? Who does them? Who are the physicians that actually operate? And that's how I got to this map. Nothing here was available. I didn't buy this research because I had no money. I had to go to my first investors and give them a plan. So this is exactly a year old, and this was done as a new startup. Now I went and defined it even more. I defined all the screw market, but does that mean that if an 18-year-old kid came in as a result of a motorcycle accident, he needs to use my enhancement into the bone? No, his bone quality is probably okay. So I drilled down, and in the ice ball, the green, I defined what exactly is an osteoporotic patient, how many fractures happen, and which fractures actually lead the patient into the hospital, because not every fracture do you go to the hospital. And that's how I got to the 1 million procedures in the United States. And in worldwide, I got to between 3.6 to 4.5 million. Now, this isn't the end of it, right? Now what I'm doing this year, I'm defining who are my key centers in the world that do the most procedures in osteoporotic patients and treat fractures, because I want those key opinion leaders to be involved in the company. So I'm drilling down even a level lower. Another factor is a planned timeline. So in my previous jobs, I used Microsoft Office, which has the planning and the mapping. But you could do it in simple ways, this with Excel, and have like a Gantt chart, a simple Gantt chart, that tells you exactly which detailed information you can do, when the activity starts, when it ends, what relations do the activities have, because some of them you can't start before the others don't end. So these are very, very important factors that also your investor will want to see, also a strategic investor will want to know. Then another related thing is the hiring plan. How many people are you going to hire over how many years, and what jobs are they going to do? So in Woven, for instance, we're thinking that in the next 5 to 9 years, we're going to hire something around 300 people. We started very small, and we started with key people that will hire more people in their divisions. So right now, we're still on the D more than the R, the development. But as we get through our regulatory and clinical, we will need people in the quality, manufacturing, supply chain management, and then in the marketing and sales as well. So how do you get all this information, and how do you know that you're really hitting on key elements? One advice is to go and look at other companies' financial statements and see not the numbers that they're stating there, but rather what line items, and make sure that you're hitting all the line items. When we do it in medical device, in the healthcare, I could tell you that every company that I'll look at their financial statement will have these 6 key elements. All of them will have financials on regulatory, reimbursement, clinical, IP, intellectual property, quality assurance, and compliance, which today is a very important element. Now, let's say I don't understand that I need compliance, so I don't know that compliance exists. I go to such a financial statement, and I go even to the notes where describe every element, what it includes, and there I will understand more about compliance. What's important here is to know what you don't know, to ask the right questions, to look at such a spreadsheet, to see really how such financials result in a P&L and other financial statements. So again, in our business, there are 6 sustainable elements that throughout the duration of the company, from day number 1 when we founded the company, throughout the exit, I need to take care of every element. Now, what's also important is the relationship between these 6 groups. They don't stand alone, but they have a relationship that is connected. And that's very important. So for instance, if a company doesn't have great IP, I always say it's an area where we know that it's our weakness. We have to work harder. That's where the money that you're giving me, if I'm speaking to a financial person, would be used. Your proceeds will be used. But IP alone doesn't mean anything. You have to have the other elements, like your regulatory and like your clinical and like your effective market communication and your total solution together. So everything has to be like a puzzle. So again, back to that same investor asking questions. These 6 sustainable elements really feed into what we call 5 Ps. The 5 Ps are the spectrum of the decision makers, and basically they will determine how fast your product will enter into the market. Because it's not enough to bring a product from concept into the clinic. Now it's all about adoption rate. How do you get from $10,000 of sales to millions to tens of millions to maybe 100 million? And it's all about that keyword of adoption. So if you're going to address all those 5 Ps that I listed here, a provider, physician, patient, payer, and policymaker, by those 6 elements, probably your adoption rate will be much higher. What's also important to the investor and to your business as managers is not to look this for the next year. Plan your financial needs way ahead of time. So in the case of Prescient, I'm looking, in the case of this current company called Woven, I'm looking 5 to 7 years ahead or even 9 years. And I think I will need $24 million. And in Series A, I need some of it, Series B and Series C. And I space them out. I know every date that I'll start a series. I know exactly how the money will be used. And by the time that I raise Series C at the end, I believe that I will reach profitability. The investor or the community or anyone will want to know when you reach profitability and how much money you will need until that time. So I think addressing both of these elements, okay, the risk factors, together with a very comprehensive funding need, will enable other people, partners, and finance to feel very comfortable that you know what you're doing. The other thing is, how are you going to use that same money to which activities? An investor wants you to share with him where his money is going to go and what actually are you going to accomplish. Today, a terminology that's very common is to tranche the money. First give me A, and then I will give you more money to succeed to B. And sometimes you have to do those baby steps. You're not going to start running and raising 24 million in your first venture and not 5 million. So you want to take something that's tangible, that's a real milestone. So writing a business plan isn't a real milestone. Having a prototype that's tested, evaluated, that may be a real milestone. And you need to know how much money that will take, how much time, what effort, what members of the team you need. And then once you show that, the money will be tranched and you'll get others. So here's the use of proceeds in this individual case. In my case, in Series A, I told my investors, you'll get a design freeze, we'll get a CE and FDA submission, and we'll increase our IP portfolio. Now, there's many ways of raising capital. This isn't the purpose of this conversation. I'm happy to take this on personal note. I just want to give you one main idea. You need to be very creative on fundraising. Like you're creative with your own ventures, like you're already innovators and entrepreneurs, also in raising capital, you need to be innovative. And what we know that is only debt or equity, today there's many ways to do it that is basically a hybrid. And again, a small example. When I started the company in March, I had no money. Where would I get my first money to kick me off? So what I did a convertible debt. I told anyone, if you come in to my deal now, it will help me write my private placement memorandum, which will have the deal with my evaluation, my pre-valuation. It will give me the time to write a term sheet and the full business plan. And as a result of that you're an early investor, you're going to get 15%, 1.5, reduction on the Series A. And I'm going to give you also interest, 15%. Does your bank give you 15%? No. Within 1 week, 5 business days, I raised $650,000. All of that converted a half a year later. So I don't want anyone, I don't want debt in my company. I want equity. So it was a mandatory conversion. So that's, again, something that takes time to develop the concept, but you need to be creative, okay? You can't go in your first startup to a VC, knock on the door, give them a term sheet for $3 million. Those things are very, very difficult. So think about different solutions and different directions. We're going to the third component, build the best team. I'm positive you also heard this concept many, many times. And what example could we give better than Steve Jobs and Apple? He knew how to build the best and the brightest and motivate them to success. This became a $500 billion market cap in 2011. There was only one company in the history that reached this level, Axon, before Apple. And basically, they kept their leadership when he came back as a CEO. So a great example. By building a team, I mean is leveraging an ecosystem. If animals know how to do it in the jungle or in the sea, we as human beings should also know how to build the ecosystem. So also within Woven, we built the ecosystem. I can't afford to hire now 20 people, and each one has a narrow space of activity. And this is the ecosystem that we have built. We use the best clinical research in the world based in Davos, Switzerland. We use law firm where we need. We use consultants on the clinical and regulatory, built the ecosystem. Other partnerships could be strategic, government, smart medical, buying group, or different banks. They could be part of your team as well as investors. So partnerships today are definitely an array of areas. And when you partner with a partnership, it doesn't always have to mean merger and acquisition. It could mean that you're partnering with someone because they want distribution rights, or they want to do your packaging, or they want to be involved in your distribution or manufacturing. So M&A happens only when you're post-revenue usually, and when you really get to the large numbers. But you want to you could start in the industry looking for someone that's in a narrow area that can partner with you. And these are some examples, at least that worked for me. So once you establish your company, it's important to create a culture. Every company is very, very different, and you need to create the roles, the job description, the titles. You need to implement procedures, even expense report. How do people use the money when they travel? We have a procedure in our company. The simple things, but you want to get people aligned to how they need to act, so not everyone acts according to his own code. Be aware. So here I will play a video, if it plays. Can you hear? What happened to the volume here? So the strength, they leverage the strength. It doesn't always come from the strongest and the biggest. Sometimes the technique does matter, and you leverage all your team's strengths. Basically, when you don't know something, go and ask. That's very important. Leverage the strength of your team, and know your weaknesses, okay? And work on those as well. And here's another example. Know where you stand. The reason that I'm bringing this slide is that every stage of a company needs a different manager. And I'll give an example. The star, which definitely has a market growth and the market share, is not the same CEO like the CEO that started the company. So sometimes the person that initiated, innovated, the entrepreneur that founded the company has to maybe step aside, not away, but aside to a different and a better job. And you need to maybe hire a CEO that did it before. And every stage, again, is different. It may be a CEO that knows how to bring the company into commercialization, into penetration, into market awareness, knows how to get the first million to 10 million. But then when you want to take a startup and scale it up to 100 million, like the Star, then you need to bring someone that's very good in commercialization, that knows marketing, that knows sales, that knows his end users, that knows distribution channels, that did it before. If you're the CEO that started the company and you want to take it to the 10 next years, you need to think about that very, very seriously. You could still always stay, right, the founder or the co-founder of the company. No one will take away that title from you. So in many examples in my life, I had to step aside or come in and replace someone when my expertise played a better role, or move aside when I didn't have that advantage. So this is very much be aware, know where you are, know where your company is, know who you need to bring as expertise, and strengthen the company. As you could see, I'm not a technology person. I've demonstrated this. 1 second. I guess the arrow has to be in a specific place. Where are all the technology companies here to help me out? 1 second. No, now I want to exit from that. Does someone know how to work the videos here? What? It's not, yeah, I don't have my keyboard. This is all I have here. Next time I should come with my computer. It worked before. I just don't have a keyboard, so I think. Oh, here's a keyboard. Okay, so let's get out of there. Okay, thank you. Yep. And then it's on the bottom. Yeah, this is good.
Again, this is the USS Montana requesting that you immediately divert your course 15 degrees to the north to avoid a collision. Over.
Please divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid collision.
This is Captain Hancock. You will divert your course. Over.
Negative, Captain. I'm not moving anything. Change your course. Over.
So, this is the USS Montana, the second largest vessel in the North Atlantic Fleet. You will change course 15 degrees north. All of the course will take measures to ensure the safety of this ship. Over.
This is a lighthouse station. It's your call.
So again, be aware it's a very important key message. And this is a Harvard study that I read a couple of years ago. If a company changes the course 3 times, only 3 times, do you think they'll succeed or fail? The answer is failure. Companies that change the course 6 times are the ones that actually succeeded. I was very surprised, but that's exactly the intention here, because the industry sometimes changes, the competition change, the regulation change. In our case, compliance in healthcare changed a lot with the Sunshine Act. I can't have physicians invest anymore in my technology, because in 2 years from now, they'll be users. Okay, and the Obama administration came down on this very, very difficult. So it changed. So I had to change course. So what's important is to get the talented people, the gifted people in your team, and be aware of changes. And then adjust your course so you don't crash in that same lighthouse. Be relentless. And this is from the Karate Kid. I am sure most of you saw the new one and the first version. And it's always inspiring. And the SEALs is a very inspiring. To get into the SEALs, I don't know how many are aware here, but I recently learned, because one of my colleagues is joining the SEALs, it's a half a year of proving yourself day in and day out. And this is not an easy task in hand, but you have to see the end goal. 75% do not make it. In one of the studies, they showed that 30% quit in their maximum capacity. In other studies, they showed that even if you inject glucose to these athletes, it doesn't help them anymore. Okay, in other studies, they took two groups of athletes. To a half of them, they gave a placebo, and a half of them, they gave sugar, but both of them had to spit what they took. And the ones that thought that they had the sugar and it translated into the brain did a bit better. So really, energy drinks, those kind of sort of endorsements do not always help to finish the task. It's really the perseverance and how much you're determined to finish more than anything else. So I want to speak a little bit about relentlessness and what it means. And there is a myth that success is mainly determined by something called ability. These are not my words. It's actually the words of Yale, the new chairman of the bank, of the Reserve Bank, and she spoke now in the NYU graduation. Again, I recommend that everyone listens to her speech. She quotes a very important word called grit. Grit isn't about your IQ. It's not about where you were born and to who you were born. Grit is beyond determination. They really don't understand a lot about it, but they know that it's someone that's looking for a long-term goal. Why? Because if you're a CEO or you started a company, the endeavor is very long goal to get to profitability and build a sustainable technology and a sustainable company. And that long goal may be resulted with day-to-day battles, with battles that you can't actually always win, some discouraging days. So it's really a roller coaster. And if you have that long-term goal, you don't get discouraged by small little failures because you really need to ignore them and keep your eyes on the long-term medal. So it's basically like what's more important, to win the battle or to win the war? Obviously to win the war. There's many examples in the history that you actually lose battles and you win the war. So that is grit. When you wake up every day and you don't get broken from one little incident that you didn't get funding, or you didn't get your IP, or it took longer to get approval for a regulatory path. Something very important. So here's some clip again, which shows a determination.
Chris Gardner.
I was sitting out there for the last half hour trying to come up with a story that would explain my being here dressed like this. I couldn't think of anything.
Chris, what would you say if a guy walked in for an interview without a shirt on? And I hired him.
He must have had on some really nice pants.
So he wasn't intimidated. He obviously came underdressed that day, but he decided to give it a try, to give it a battle. Again, I could share a personal experience. When Johnson & Johnson decided to go direct in Israel and fire all the distributors, I had the same battle. I came to the head of a hospital that was a key leading hospital in Israel, based in Jerusalem, and he wasn't willing to meet me, wasn't willing to return my calls. And the reason was because J&J has a different way they conduct business. They have credo values. They don't sponsor trips of physicians to conferences. They don't give free samples. And he thought that by having a direct operation in Israel, his personal improvement will probably go down. So what I did, and this is a true story, I took a sleeping bag, a tent, and I packed them all in a bag. I stood in front of his office and I said, listen, I understand you're very busy. You didn't return my calls in the last 2 months. I'm camping out here. When you have 2 minutes, please give me a time and I'll explain to you a little bit more about why Johnson & Johnson's value matter and are important to you. And he saw me within 10 minutes that day, and really our relationship, this went to new levels, and he opened for me the market. And the reason here is, again, determination, perseverance, persistence. Use whatever word you want, but you have to be determined. If you are thrown out of the door, and it's an important relationship that you need, come through the window. Don't be aggressive. I wasn't aggressive about it, right? I just, did it like so-called a joke and camped out of his office. And by the way, when I did it, I wasn't much older than the room here, right? I was in my 20s. And I just knew that this would carry his attention, because no one ever came with a sleeping bag to his office. Never. So here again, I brought the example of Apple that we all know. Okay? In '97, they had a recording of a 1.5 billion loss. Okay, who recovers from something like this? Many don't. But Steve Jobs came back, and he really carved out what iPad did to the industry and how we listen to music, what iPhone did in order to take the telecom industry, and of course, iPad that I don't move without, which really closed the gap between computers and smartphones. So this ingenious, never gave up, and this relentless, no better word. So this is my last video to show what this bunny does on his relentlessness. So the bunny just continues, he's lucky, but he just doesn't stop. And that's what you need to do, good days, bad days, you just need to stop. So this is a summary. These are the 5 components that I wanted to bring to you today, and I guess we open it to questions, Jim?
I think so, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yes.
I think you said that when you were doing woven orthopedics, you made plans out 9 years to see how much capital you needed. Is that right? 6 years, 9 years?
The capital is related until profitability. Other plans extend beyond profitability. So I saw until when do I need to give equity and get money until I get to profitability.
I see how that's important to lay out to investors, but you also said that you plan on changing courses 3, maybe 6 times. What's the point of making a plan for that so many years when it's probably all going to be changed?
That's why, again, what's important is that validation and verification. Exactly. You're going to make changes because the industry or the environment or the macro environment will determine those changes. Or because you have suddenly IP that's blocking IP that you didn't know about, so you'll have to make those changes. In one of my businesses, we started a startup with 3 different businesses, a lack of focus. And after a year and a half, we realized that we can't also diagnose and also treat, and we have to decide, do we diagnose or treat the same disease? And we decided that we're going to go with the treatment. So those are the kind of changes you need to decide. We were very aggressive, and we wanted to have a larger platform. Yes, please.
Earlier you talked, you had the slide up there with Maslow hierarchy need, and basically separated each need for finding a niche but is it possible to be in multiple areas of the need?
Again, I'm not a psychologist, but I think that business-wide you definitely could apply to two of them. Yes.
I think a lot of us are like filling a lot of different hats for our company. So like we're doing a bit of tech work, a bit of business work, and trying to do as much as we can. And you'd mentioned like at some point it is important to like bring on other people to the team. How do you know when that's the right time to say, okay, I've reached something that it would be better if I focused on something else and brought someone else onto the company?
Okay, this is a very good question, and I'll be a little long. The way that I hire people is usually in the early stage. I take a person that could play 2 or 3 roles. For instance, I recently hired an accountant. He's a CPA and a JD. So now that I'm doing my second closing in Series A, he's, for instance, crafting and writing all the closing documents because he's also a lawyer. But then obviously he's also an accountant, so in the last month we finished the audit. We're finishing next week our taxes for 2013. So one person playing a lot of hats. But in the future, he won't be able to sustain and work for 12 to 15 hours a day. It's unfair. So as we grow and we have more transactions than, now the 10 that we have maybe in a month, we will have to take on people that will report to him. One of the reasons that I got in the state of Connecticut such a capable individual is because he knows that he will grow with the company and one day may result in getting into the CFO position. Another example is my vice president of R&D. He was for 10 years the R&D, the VP of R&D of Stryker Spine, a very big company. And now he's playing roles of maybe 6 hats and looking also at the research, development, manufacturing, IP, compliance, and quality control. But now he's hiring 3 people in the next 3 months. So you do take people that could wear many hats, but when you start getting deeper and reaching your milestones, you definitely need people to dedicate. So what helps me a lot to do with myself and the workers in the company, my colleagues, is to define the roles. And every year at the beginning of the year, I give every worker a goal worksheet. And every quarter we have an evaluation and they see where they reached. Now, not all companies could give them cash as bonus, so we give equity as bonus, right? There's many ways to do it. But when they're determined and you actually know which work they're going to do and what they're going to achieve by the first of the year, and you follow it every 3 months, you could put it into control. And then it becomes way too much because you're getting to too much and you'll have to hire more people. But it's a very good situation that at the beginning everyone could do many different tasks, in my opinion. And always take a consultant with some expertise to make sure that you're doing the right thing and you're thinking about everything. Because it's so hard to know what we don't know. Yes, please.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the importance of timeline, deliverables, and metrics? Really having those systems in place gives you a quantitative measurement of the qualitative work that you're doing.
Yes, again, very, very important. And I'll tie it into your colleague's question, because I think that they're very related with the changing of course. So you have to have a plan that marches you forward. Otherwise, people come in the morning and what am I really doing now? So it keeps you focused, right? So that's very important. It's important to the investors, but to you also as an operator. Otherwise, you can't really control. I don't know, how many people do you have in your company?
I mean, there's several companies. So,
several companies.
The one that I'm leading, we only have 4 employees. 5 employees, not employees.
Now, obviously, you don't want to micromanage them, and you don't want to be micromanaged. So by having these big goals set up, and even to some extent the detail, they're accountable to their deliverables. And that's very important to the board, to the CEO, to the investors, to the owners of the company, to see that they really reached the goals and it took them to the next step. Because there are many companies that raise money in Series A, but they'll never raise Series B if they didn't deliver, what they said that they would. and delays happen, and changes happen, and you exceed your budget, okay, that's real life. Nothing here is sterile, like in a lab that you never, but if you don't even have a plan that guides you, if you don't have that GPS, instead of getting to Hartford, you may get to Pennsylvania. At least that's right for me. You saw my technical ability. So when I have to drive from New York to Hartford, I need that guideline, and I need it also in business. What we also do in our company, now that we have about 20 shareholders, is every quarter is the one page with all what we accomplished. I don't want to come to them back to them when I need their money. I want them to know where I'm using the money and what I actually achieved. So that's another way that the timelines help you. Now, I think it's also gives a lot of motivation. When you come and you have your weekly management meeting or month, and every one of your team members says, this is what I accomplished, and this is why it's important. Not to say I accomplished something that's not relevant, but it's relevant to the business. I think that gives a lot of satisfaction. And it's even a competition between the team members of who will bring more of the, items that were done in that period than the others. I feel it even with my team. Everyone wants to show that he wears multiple hats, and he succeeded to bring a health economic model, finish a website, finish an audit that we just finished. And it creates a lot of synergy between the players and between themselves to accomplish and have that grid. So a plan is a big milestone, a big guideline, and then obviously there are always adjustments within it. I always say it's like two missiles. The two missiles leave from the same place, but each one has a slight different plan when they ship from the rocket. And at the end, they land in two different planets. So you don't want to have a plan, okay, and you end up in a different planet. So it is important to validate, verify that you're aligned with your plan. But then again, you need sometimes to be flexible and make the change. So Good to Great is another very good book that guides you as managers, as entrepreneurs, that you have to put the right people on the bus, and the bus not always has the right destination, okay? But if you have the right people, that's very important as well.
Who were your earliest mentors, and how did you get them?
Okay, great question. So I didn't actually go and seek for them, but that was the positive starting in Johnson & Johnson, and actually not as an entrepreneur, but being in a multi-international company, because there they assign for you mentors. But they don't assign mentors if you don't, show some potential. So since Israel for 3 consecutive years was the #1 in revenues per capita from all European countries, they assigned for me a mentor that was in the headquarters in New Brunswick, and his name was Marv Woodall. He's still around. And he mentored me through my way and through my relocations to the other states. And that was very, very helpful. But, you need to be very lucky. 20-somewhat years ago, there wasn't this method that you're so blessed in Yale and with the YEI program that you're actually assigned mentors, which is fantastic. In those days, if you didn't find yourself in a big multi-international company, it didn't really happen. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I have a question about the woman leadership. Because, the entrepreneur world is kind of male woman, as I learned. So can you touch a bit about how you leverage your strength as a woman and communicate the weakness investors think women have?
So I'll repeat the question, because maybe someone didn't hear, but it's also for me to validate that I heard and I understood. You were asking, how do you leverage the weakness and improve the strengthness? Was that the main question?
Leverage the strength.
Leverage the strength?
As a woman.
As a woman.
And also how to mitigate the weakness that investors think women have.
Mitigate the perceived weakness of being a woman.
Well, I don't think it's a weakness. It's a big strength, and there's actually a huge opportunity because basically women are so-called maybe a minority group in the sense that there's less CEOs, less chairman women. So there's a lot of unique programs, even here in the state of Connecticut. They're opening now in Westport, I just heard, a new program for women entrepreneurship to coach them. So there's actually opportunity because they want more women involved. There are grants to companies that hire, that have more women in the company than men, or a certain percentage. I never applied to those grants, so I'm not sure what it is, but there are national and government grants for minorities and women that lead the company, so it's worthwhile seeing it. And I see it as, again, a great opportunity. I don't think that, in my eyes, no one ever stopped me because I'm a woman or I'm Israeli. I don't think they actually saw by it opportunity. I think women have the ability to share the business with the coworkers, to be very open about getting ideas, which is very important. You don't want to be up there alone, okay? A CEO alone without the ability to communicate and be a switchboard with her colleagues and her workers is very lonely and very, very difficult. And maybe I'll answer it a little in a different way. In J&J, we had once an assignment that one individual person had to leave the room and think how many ways he could use a paperclip. And the whole group stayed as a group and brainstormed what a simple paperclip could be used. The group came up with maybe tens or hundreds of ideas. The individual that came back to the room had less than 10 ideas. So, you know, I think, again, women don't have the ego or the need to only lead or be ahead. They want to incorporate the ideas. They want to share the ideas. And I find it, you know, to have worked for me and to be actually an advantage.
Any questions? If not, let's thank Ilana one more time.
Thank you. Thank you.